Welcome to the American Grown Podcast, hosted by Austin Sullivan. The American Grown Podcast will focus on people from different walks of life and their journey to where they are now. Now, turn up your volume and settle in for a great episode.
Hi, I'm Austin Sullivan, and I'm your host for the American Grown Podcast, recorded inside the Colortech Creative Solutions studios. Today, we have Adam Gilson, owner of Gilson Strength Conditioning. He's following his dreams and giving back to the community by educating and mentoring athletes and adults on the importance of proper strength training. Adam, welcome to episode 16 of the American Grown Podcast.
Hey, Austin, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you can make it in. Let's start off, Adam, like your early childhood. What were you into? What did you do? And any sports?
Well, I lived an average childhood. I grew up on the north side of town. I was one of three siblings. I had two older sisters. My father, he's worked the same job his whole life, manual worker. My mother, she was a respiratory therapist. You know, both of them combined just had an associate's degree. So my sisters and I, pursuing the education, that's a big deal.
You said older sisters?
Yeah.
Do you ever compete with them as you were growing up?
I'd say a little bit. A little different than being females. But yeah, there was definitely a brother-sister competition there.
Yeah. In high school, I know you were a wrestler and also football?
Yep.
Okay. What was your favorite? What'd you like? What'd you learn from those sports?
I would say wrestling was my favorite of the two. Football also, I played ever since I was probably 6 years old, playing with the Ebenezer Raiders, going up through the junior high program. But what did I learn? There's a lot of takeaways from both sports. It's just being accountable, proper work ethic, good quality traits that really carry on from sports like throughout the rest of your life. So from both football and wrestling, I learned both.
Yeah. What do you find the most challenging between wrestling and maybe even football? You're more into wrestling because I know some athletes had to really cut weight and things like that. So what was kind of challenging for you?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to wrestle varsity as a freshman for wrestling. And that year I did deal with the weight loss component a lot. After going through that, I reached a point where, I almost gave up on the sport of wrestling altogether. And it really was because of the weight loss component. So, going forward in my sophomore, junior, and senior year, I really just focused on, competing at the weight that I felt comfortable at and decided not to be miserable and lose a lot of weight.
Just so you kind of wrestled up a weight class, I guess it would be.
Yeah, I would say kind of my natural weight. One thing I did focus on, from my freshman year all the way through my senior year was, the strength conditioning training. So I moved up in weight classes every year. So I started my freshman year about 130 pounds, 160 my sophomore year, 182 my junior, and then my senior year I worked up to 195. So I progressively, grew. It could have been,
Put muscle mass on.
Yes,
for sure.
definitely the muscle mass and
Yeah.
puberty and stuff like that. But yeah, I completely took the weight loss component out of it, and that made the sport of wrestling a lot more enjoyable.
A lot more enjoyable. That's awesome. And what's it like? Because I never wrestled, and we were talking before we started recording about Coach Lebo, Steve Lebo, and he wanted me to come out. Looking back, maybe I should have. Always a bigger dude. God bless, I would have never been able to cut weight like you guys do. But when you wrestle these bigger guys, what goes through your mindset, and you have to have a mentality, I think, about you.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's a specific mentality. It's just you and one other person out there. There's definitely a fight or flight response. It's hard to describe unless you're in that type of scenario. But the competitive nature to it just makes the sport so much better.
Yeah. And while you're out there wrestling, were there any influencers or anyone that helped you?
Yeah, I would say the start of youth wrestling, I had a coach named Barry Bridigan. He was a good influence in the sport for me to really kind of just get in gear with it. And then when I moved up to junior high wrestling, I would say Steve Lebo had a big influence on me. And then when I got to high school, I had another coach, Barry Spahn. He had another influence on me also.
Okay.
So yeah, a series of coaches definitely influenced my passion for wrestling.
Oh, that's phenomenal. And what I liked on the form you filled out to be on the podcast, actually, Lebanon has a CTC program, and you were the first graduating class of a sports therapy science program back in 2014. So what was that like, being the first class to go through that?
Yeah, so just a little bit about that. It was my junior year. It was at Cedar Crest there. We had a meeting in the auditorium. They were just going to go over some programs at the CTC. I heard him say the sports therapy science is going to be the first year. And, at the time, I was really into sports and working out at the local gyms here. So I was like, wow, this would be a great fit for me. But, I never really gave personal training a thought because of kind of the lack of opportunities in the area. There's smaller
Right.
gyms.
Yeah.
There just wasn't, as many opportunities for it. So I didn't really give it a second thought. So something about the program was that appealed to me, but it was a little scary at the same time, was it was a full day program. So
Okay.
for my whole senior year, I didn't have to go to Cedar Crest during the day. I just went to the CTC from
Yeah.
8 to 2 o'clock, and then I would go back over to the school for sports practices, so football and wrestling. So just that was a little bit different, something to get adjusted to, but I think it was the place for me.
So while you're going to the CTC, you have your practice and everything. On the form, you said you were the third ever Cedar Crest High School state wrestling qualifier during your senior year, which is 2014, with 99 total wins.
Correct, yeah. So being a state qualifier in AAA here in the state of Pennsylvania, it's a very high accomplishment. The state of Pennsylvania happens to be one of the most competitive in the country.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So just making it to states was a big deal. But as far as for Cedar Crest, yeah, they hadn't had a state qualifier for probably like 10 or 12 years. So a lot of the people that I grew up wrestling with or watching, from Cedar Crest,
Yeah.
they just never made it that far. They might have made it to districts, but it got cut short. So they never actually made it to the Giant Center for the state
I was just
tournament.
going to say that because it's at the Hershey
Yep.
Giant Center. What does that feel like? Because I've never had that opportunity. I mean, it's probably packed with people cheering and yelling for you and everything. What was that like back then for you? What was that experience like?
Yeah, so honestly, words are, it's hard to describe that, the environment there, that opening day for a state tournament. But something that kind of did prepare me is ever since I was a little kid, my dad always took me every year to go see the state championships.
Oh,
So
wow.
I got exposed to it but I will say actually being down on the floor is a whole different experience
Is
than,
it? Yeah.
than sitting in the stands there.
Was there any kind of music or anything you would listen to? Any motivational talkers like to get pumped up before you went out there on the mat?
I wouldn't say any motivational talkers, but I listen to a wide variety of music. I definitely get kind of like, they refer to like a runner's high when you're running
Okay.
and stuff like that. But I think music kind of creates, definitely a positive stimulus in my mind, which helps out with the motivation.
I'm sure it's like you're focused solely on the task at head, and then that music just kind of gets you in a flow state, kind of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So after senior year, what was life after high school? What'd you do?
All right. Well, since my accomplishments my senior year ended up making it to the state tournament for wrestling. Before that, I really didn't consider college too much. But after that great ending to my senior season, I was given an opportunity to continue my wrestling career at Shippensburg University. I continued my education and being a student athlete to Shippensburg University, where I ended up not wrestling due to the workload. Kind of just, the student athlete work-life balance was just, it was a lot.
It's a lot. It
Yeah,
is.
it was definitely a lot. So it was a big adjustment for me. The school wasn't the best of fit for me also. And I really just wanted to focus on my academics and, my career.
Yeah.
The major I did pursue there was the major I finished with, was exercise science.
Oh,
but,
nice.
I really just wanted to seek out more opportunities.
That's awesome because you hear a lot of college graduates, have a degree in whatever it may be. Some people say like basket weaving and things like that, but it doesn't ever convert to, the real world, and that you actually followed through and now you're doing what you went to school for, or at least it's helping you in your career path. That's phenomenal. At college and even back home, were there any mentors that you would call upon or think of to help you while you're at Shippensburg? Because you're right, it can be a lot, the balance between athlete and then schooling. So I would agree with you. Focus on what's going to impact you the most going forward. It's tough. Like I remember for me it was tough when I didn't have football anymore, or didn't do track. It's like, oh man, you look back and it's like, well, that's not going to be your life. What are you doing forward? So do you have any mentors?
I would say at that time in my life, my dad was really there for me.
Okay.
He definitely understood the decision that I had to make there. And, he believes in, academics and a career more than athletics. So, I was at a situation there where I was kind of unhappy with Shippensburg University. So I did some research and I looked up some of the top exercise science programs in the country. I came across Florida Atlantic University in
Okay.
Boca Raton, Florida.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
move.
I ended up picking up, I did did 2 years full time at Shippensburg, and then I picked up and moved to South Florida, and that's where I attended Florida Atlantic University.
Okay.
I lived down there for 3 years full time, 3.5 years, and that's where I got my bachelor's degree in exercise science. And then after that, I became a strength and conditioning coach. So I sat and became a certified strength and conditioning specialist. So it's a specific exam. It's a little bit better than personal training, but it allows me to work with a large umbrella of athletes and individuals of all ages.
What was that move like for the listeners out there? Because you're going from Pennsylvania, cold, snowy, down to sunny, hot Florida, 80s, 90-degree temps and things like that. What was that? I mean, it was a big move.
Oh, absolutely. It was definitely a big, life change. Going down there, I was by myself. I didn't have any family or friends, so it was really a fresh restart, in my life. And that was what I was looking for, another opportunity to, giving up on the wrestling and the athletic career. It was, time to just focus on my academics. So, I completely changed how I was as a student. I ended up doing a lot better down there. I really focused on the education component. And then, I really moved down there for the experience and the exposure in the field of fitness. So I started working as a personal trainer full-time or part-time when I was in school while I was working on the bachelor's degree. After that, I graduated, got the strength coach certification, interned at a place down there, a big sports performance facility. And then after that, I was able to secure my first assistant strength coach job at a place that worked with elite youth and professional athletes.
Okay. So while you're down there, was there any big names that you saw or ran into or got close
so
with?
I definitely was able to work with some higher profile professional and MLB guys,
nice.
and even some guys in the UFC and stuff like that, or Olympic level athletes. It was great exposure experience, just being a part of the field. It's something that I wouldn't necessarily get around here.
Right. Pennsylvania doesn't have that draw for, those kind of athletes, but Florida for sure. You're down there, obviously strength conditioning, you love doing it. What do you think your passion is, though, in that field?
I would say taking an individual and allowing them to perform at their highest level. Showing them that, these things are achievable, and if you set your mind to it with the right consistency and training program, that you can achieve anything.
So how would you, especially maybe younger athletes, whether it's a senior in high school looking to go to D1, D2 college, whatever it may be, or a college athlete maybe training to go to the next level, how do you get them to that next tier?
So for the high school athletes, really it's getting them in there at the earliest time possible. So earliest in the high school career, or even, the best time is the middle school age athletes. They have plenty of time to, they're going through puberty, a lot of changes with their body, and they have the longest time to actually achieve those results. So that would be kind of the long-term athletic development model. The high school, again, getting in early as possible, but I would say learning the fundamentals of strength training, like fundamental movement patterns, moving efficiently, moving with efficient technique and, proper cueings and stuff like that. Just mastering those fundamentals are going to help you in the long run so much.
And I would think, strength and conditioning, especially once you start moving that heavier weight and pushing your body more, it's crucial to do it in a safe and, like you said, a proper way. Because if these athletes get hurt, that could affect the rest of their career.
Exactly, yeah. So our main focus is, having individuals get stronger and faster, but also ultimately we want to focus on injury prevention.
Yeah.
So, we don't, if they're injured, you can't play the sport, which is going to take away from training. Ultimately. Right.
It could be, career ending depending on what happens. For those recoveries, do you have any recommendations? I know some people do, like I've seen lately on social media, the ice baths are getting real popular, or like a sauna type thing. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, so that's actually a good, something very popular in the industry is the hot and cold contrast. So, a combination of sauna or hot tub with, ice baths or cryotherapy, which is another method.
I've heard about that, but I don't know much about.
Yeah, so cryotherapy is kind of just standing in they have a couple different options. They have ones where you just stand tall in like a chamber, or you walk into something and your head's covered. But anyways, it uses liquid nitrogen, and it's like a fast freeze method, which is going to rapidly constrict your blood vessels. And then you're only doing it for about 3 minutes. You step out, your blood vessels are all going to dilate all of a sudden. So there's a constriction and dilation, vasodilation and constriction, which is going to create a response to the body, which is going to help with the recovery process.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
it's definitely something to try.
I was gonna say that sounds. Yeah, I'd like to try it sometime just to see what it feels like. I'm picturing what is it, Batman with Mr. Freeze with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's all cold and everything all the time. That's what I picture with those deep freezes. So, who would you say really got you into fitness? Was it your father? Was it someone down in Florida? Who really got you into it?
I would say it was mainly from my athletic career, that got me into fitness, wanting to be the best athlete I possibly could be. I understood that, just doing the bare minimum in the school training wasn't going to cut it. It wasn't going to make me, the best athlete I could possibly be. I would say, the big factor that got me into fitness was my family. My family, they always struggled with being overweight their whole life. And that was a big, eye-opening experience, seeing that, my family was unhealthy and that, I'm one of the select people in my family that are, fit and, like to live this active lifestyle. But I would say the main thing that got me into fitness and really, changed my view on it was when my mother passed away from a bariatric weight loss surgery when I was 12 years old.
Wow. Yeah. I did not know that.
Yeah, so that kind of, that definitely changed things, from a whole family dynamic. But it also, changed my viewpoint on, exercise and fitness and nutrition and kind of the whole umbrella of what is out there. And there really is other options out there besides, the actual weight loss surgery.
Besides the surgery, right. And that almost sounds like maybe the fork in the road where it's like, okay, I can keep living life this way and doing this, which, it's your body. You can choose what you do. Like, honestly, sometimes I like McDonald's, and I'll get McDonald's, or my wife will be like, do you really need another Coke slushie? For the people that know me, I love my slushies. And it's like, that's at what point do you say, okay, like I can change my life? And you really can. And it sounds like that's what you're doing with this strength and conditioning, this training, weight training, things like that, is you woke up and said, hey, there's a different, like you said, there's different way of living out there, and you're going after it 100%. So, obviously family had a big impact on you getting into fitness and then into training and weight training. But then who, if any, are some professional athletes that you look up to?
So there's definitely a few professional athletes that I look up to. In the sport of wrestling, there's a guy out there named Cael Sanderson. He was probably one of the best wrestlers of all time. He went undefeated in college. He was a 4-time national champion, and he was 159-0. So he never lost a single college match.
Holy cow.
So he was somebody I really looked up to in the sport of wrestling. Another professional athlete I looked up to, especially when I was younger, he was playing, but Tim Tebow. I looked up to him because, his life after the sports. I think he had a bigger impact on life for a lot of people than he did, through him playing as a sport.
I would agree.
And then I also view, another thing with Tim Tebow is, we have a similar mindset. There's a bigger impact on life than sports. So that's kind of how I view my business.
Yeah.
I like to mentor other individuals and show them that, there really is more to life than just sports.
Exactly. And Tim Tebow's a phenomenal guy, because most athletes at that level, you're known for your time in the NFL or in the NBA, but I would say he's more known for what he's doing now, with his nonprofits and helping others. Very religious man. Obviously, everyone knows that from when he was down in Florida, but definitely a great role model. Now, let's get into the meat of it. How did Gilson Strength Conditioning start, and when did it start?
All right, so this is something if you probably would have asked me back in 2014 when I was at the CTC in that program there. I always said I wanted to be a gym owner. I wanted to, run my own personal training gym. But really what got the start, I was down in South Florida, I was still in college. I kind of got sick of going to the commercial gyms and just waiting on machines all the time and then using kind of crappy, outdated equipment. So I decided to start accumulating some gym equipment, and I had some buddies that had a garage over at their place. So in South Florida in 2019, I started my first garage gym. Some unfortunate events, I had to move back during COVID. So I moved back here to Pennsylvania. And in 2020, I had the gym in my dad's basement. And then I moved out of there and moved into Middletown. I had a townhouse there, so I had a garage. So I had a garage gym in Middletown in 2021. At the end of 2021, I kind of changed up my career altogether, and I decided it was the right time to pursue this. So in March of 2022, I took everything from the garage and I just opened up a commercial space here in Lebanon.
What was that like, opening up your own business? I mean, there had to be some fears, will people come?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a fear probably with every business. Will people come? And you really just can't just build something and expect people to come. It really, truly does not work that way. So yeah, you definitely had the fears of am I going to survive here in the first month or two, or long term? Is anybody going to come? All those those were all thoughts in my mind. But here we are 6 months later. We're doing great so far, and we're really just slowly gaining momentum here in the area. I think that's another big thing, is a lot of people just don't know we're there and really what we offer.
Right, you're so new. It's so new, but yet your brand. I mean, you have your logo on your Yeti here on the table, and your shirt. I mean, it's a nice brand. It's a nice logo. Simple. It stands out. It's clean. So for the listeners out there that might be doubting, a strength and conditioning coach, what would you say are some of the benefits? We know from an athlete standpoint, they want to get stronger, they want to get faster, but you also cater to adults and older people, 20s, 30s, 40s. So what are some of the benefits you would say?
I'd say the first benefit with working with a strength conditioning coach or working with a trainer at Gilson Strength Conditioning would be the individualized approach. No matter if you're an athlete or an everyday individual, we take in many factors such as your health history, your occupation, your current activity status. We want to know like what you can and can't do. So for athletes though, a major benefit would be the individualized approach, which is going to include sport specific exercises. Also,
Okay.
That can be specific towards your sport, no matter if you're baseball, hockey, basketball, football. And then the injury prevention component. So in every workout, we put in injury prehab exercise. So why wait till you get injured and go do physical therapy and do rehab exercises when you could do preventative rehab exercises? That's something
idea.
we do.
Yeah.
But more for the athlete and for the everyday adult or individual, I would say the strength coach holds you accountable. That's a big thing. The accountability, you're supposed to be here at a certain time. All right, we're expecting you to be there. And then the other thing would be the motivation part. You have a coach there, it's all about you for 1 hour, and we're just there to motivate you. So I think it's highly motivating when you work with a strength coach. The accountability is going to be there. But the most important thing is the results. That's where the benefits of working with the strength coach are. We can really, through accountability, through motivation, and through an individualized training approach, we can really get you the results.
And I would say that's probably the key in my mind, being an outsider looking into your business, being 30, going to be 31 this October, is, that accountability, having somebody there that's going to call you or text you or say, hey, you're late, where you at? And then also be there to motivate you, because doing it yourself, you can say, okay, I'm going to skip today. Well, all of a sudden you skip tomorrow, and you don't wake up at 5:30 or 6 a.m. like you said you were, and all of a sudden a week goes by, a month goes by, and you didn't do the workouts. But if you have somebody there to motivate you, keep you accountable, I think that's the key to having a strength and conditioning coach. So on the form you had mentioned that GSC, Gilson Strength Conditioning, is not your typical gym, and you have some specialty equipment. Can you shout out a couple of those pieces of equipment and what you have there?
Yeah, so really what I meant by that is, our personal training studio or our strength conditioning performance space is different than commercial gyms. It's different because we don't have, 50 treadmills, 50 ellipticals, and, tons of, selectorized or plate loaded machines. We have, each piece was selected for a specific purpose. Ultimately, the purpose is to maximize space and efficiency. We are a smaller space. So really what makes us different is we have two big power racks, which allow you to work inside and outside of the rack. We have a lot of specialty bars, so we don't just have standard barbells. We do have women's barbells that weigh 15 kilograms, then we do have men's bars that weigh 20 kilograms. So there's a different type of bar, it has different diameters. But then we have some more specialty bars. So say you had shoulder range of motion issues, you can use a safety squat bar. Rather than deadlifting with a straight bar, you can use what we call a trap bar. Stuff that is actually going to be better for you in terms of technique. Some specific items we got that really set us apart would be, we have a reverse hyper machine, which allows you to really work your lower back. And then another thing that makes us unique is we have a belt squat machine from Sorinex, which is one of my favorite companies out there. They build some of the top of the line exercise equipment. But the belt squat is a great way to still do the squat movement. Say you had a lower back injury in the past, or maybe you have a fused vertebrae or something. But it allows you to still do the squat movement, but not load your spine. fine. So you slip a belt on and you hook it in, and you can still squat without loading the vertebrae.
I picture, like you mentioned, these gyms, Planet Fitness being one, where it's just miles of treadmills and bikes, and you see people going on it, and they're looking at the TV, and it's like, are they really getting anything out of it? So what you have is a niche gym set up with the most, I would say, modern equipment, and it's to get results, maybe not fast, but to get them safely and as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Yes, that's for sure. So, number one thing is safety in there, So, the equipment has to match that. So if there's not safety spotter arms underneath, somebody could get injured while they're spotting. Everything we do it in a safe and efficient manner.
And where is Gilson Strength Conditioning located?
It's located at 855 Tuck Street, Suite 3. It's off of Cornwall Road over in Lebanon.
Perfect. Change subjects a little bit. What are some routines? And again, I don't want you to give out all your secrets, but some routines for maybe someone at home, wanting to build a little muscle, get back into shape. Is there a certain routine you'd recommend?
I would say there's not one specific routine that's going to do that for you. There's many factors with working out at home that makes it so challenging, At the end of the day, you're at your house. That's where you feel comfortable. So, setting up, you can set up the most amazing garage gym or a little space in the basement, but really it comes down to consistency. You got to be consistent with the workouts at home. They're tough, but it's doable. But I would say it really depends on the equipment and the space available. Again, going back to the consistency, let's try at least 2 to 4 times a week, and let's do full body or upper lower body split. So we're going to do body weight movements 2 to 4 times a week.
Okay.
Right? And we're going to train our full body or just our upper and lower at one time.
My next question is if you could name a workout that really pushes your clients. And I remember, track we would do, and again, I'm just throwing this out there, but we would do burpees and things like that. I remember that was, it was a little tough, it was a little tough. What do you think would be a workout that someone could do at home, just real quick on the fly?
I would say for my athletes, something that really, conditions you aerobically would be what you call a 300-yard shuttle. Okay. So you run, say you're on a football field, you go down to the 50-yard line, down and back 6 times. All right. So that's going to be 300 yards total. And that's a very challenging test. It should take you anywhere from about 1:10 to 2 minutes,
Okay.
But it is just going to, tap you out aerobically. You're definitely going to feel it. But I would say overall there's not really one specific workout that, the clients, are highly motivated about. I would say each session, are equally challenging and motivating. But in the last 5 to 10 minutes of every hour session, we save that for general conditioning. So, at the end of that, the clients really do feel, they feel accomplished and satisfied because it's just a challenging, quick 5 to 10 minutes. We're going to get the heart rate up and then we're going to get you out the door.
And that's perfect. That's what I would want if I was going to a gym and a training center, is something, quick, efficient, get me going, like you said, get the heart rate up, get a good sweat going. And then, like you said, too, at the end of it, you feel great. You feel like you've accomplished something. I always looked at working out when I was at college and even high school and things. Like, if you work out in the early morning, it sucks. You got to get up. You got to, wake your ass up, which is hard to do sometimes. But you get that done. And to me, the workout, in my mind, should be the hardest part of your day. Mm-hmm. Then everything else, your work, your life, if you have kids, that's easy stuff. That's just... that's why I always looked at working out. Not that I've done it in a while. I got to get back into it. But, that's how I looked at it. So are there any kind of meals you'd recommend to athletes or people that are maybe looking to come into, your facility that they should be consuming or maybe look at consuming to help build muscle and get in shape?
So I would say across the board, either with athletes or the everyday individual, if they want to gain muscle and build muscle, you need to be on a high protein, low fat, low sugar diet, But at the end of the day, food alone is not going to increase your muscle mass. We need to have a combination of, consistent strength training with a healthy diet for your best results. So the combination of the both. But I would say focus on a high protein diet, low fat and low sugar. Not crazy. I'm not too big into supplements, but
you read my mind. I was just going to say, what do you think about the protein powders and things like that?
So, they're good. They're definitely needed, but they're not a replacement to, a nice healthy diet, from whole complete foods. I would say though, for the athlete population, maybe for the, the everyday individual, adding a whey protein shake here and there. And then for the athlete specifically, using a creatine powder, stuff like that is going to help. But I wouldn't get too into, all the pre-workouts and all the kind of extra stuff out there in the supplement industry.
I mean, and for food wise, I mean, you have your meats, your proteins, your steaks. I think what nuts are healthy. I'm trying to think of high protein foods that are out there. Something like that, maybe. Or
so I would say any of the meat categories are there. We definitely have alternative versions. With not animal products to get protein sources. For other diets out there. But I would say a good moderation with the protein to carbohydrate ratio. You don't want to have too much carbs and not enough protein. You also don't want to have, not enough protein and way too many carbs.
That makes sense. Oh, that makes perfect sense.
I'd say like a good balance between the three.
Between them? Okay. Yeah, perfect. And you hinted at this earlier, but with COVID being in 2020, are there any issues that you're still facing now at the gym, at your facility at all?
I would say not as much anymore, but there still always is the possibility of, another shutdown, which could really affect the business.
If that were to happen, let's just say, would you then move some things to the outside, or what would you do to adapt?
Good question there. So one thing, and it's a lot of people did this in COVID in the fitness industry, but they really just took their whole model and kind of went online with an online coach.
Okay.
Right? So, you can still offer the same service, maybe go above and beyond with, the clients getting results, but you're not actually in person trading your time for money.
Right.
You're training on them online with the daily, weekly check-ins, things like that.
Yeah.
And you're just answering any questions they may have.
That's a great idea and a great, if needed, fallback plan. And that kind of segues into the future of Gilson Strength Conditioning. How do you plan to grow it? And I don't want you to give everything out, but what are your thoughts to try to grow it and get new people in the doors?
Yeah, so, growing GSC is definitely, a big goal of mine. We're right here in an 800 square foot facility. It's quite small, but I would say, my main goal to grow it is, first of all, maximize my current space. We need to grow members. I think just getting out there in the community a little bit more, letting people know, local sports organizations, high schools, and just other members of the community, just letting them know out there letting them know we're there is going to help grow members. So something else that we can do to grow is really, again, just going back on the maximizing the current space, we can offer new classes. So we can small group training, anywhere from 4 to 6 people at a time. We can offer adult strength classes, boot camps, and really offer the youth performance training classes, which is a big thing here. Another way to grow would be, hire additional trainers so I can spend my time doing some other stuff while the business is still, successfully running.
To promote the business, it kind of frees you up then to do those kind of things. And, I wanted to thank you because you advertised in our high school sports programs, and here at Colortech in Lebanon, we have Blue Cardinal Photography. So we partner with Cedar Crest, Anvil, Palmyra, Elko, Tulpehocken, Lebanon, and a bunch of other midget football teams and throughout, and we donate printed programs. And Adam, you would put an ad in, and you're also on our LED sign. So, I appreciate that, and I think it's a great opportunity for any local businesses, whether you're in the health and fitness or just a mom and pop grocery store, whatever it may be, to get your name out there. So now, what would you say motivates you every day to wake up and get after it?
I would say what motivates me every day is just competition in life. At the end of the day, there's somebody always out there outworking you.
That's true.
In the same industry, or, there's always somebody out there who is doing the things you want to do, and you should aspire to be like them.
Yeah, you want to be the best in your craft.
Of course, yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. And your day-to-day, why do you personally do what you do day in and day out?
I would just say the personal satisfaction of, training clients. I really enjoy training clients and getting them the results they want. I actually enjoy training athletes and the everyday gym person, more than I like training myself.
Okay.
I just get a lot of personal satisfaction, and I love being involved with the fitness industry.
That's awesome, and that's something you'd want in a trainer and a conditioning coach for sure. So now, how can our listeners connect with you and follow along on your journey?
Well, you can check out my website at www.gilsonstrengthco.com. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Gilson Strength Conditioning, or you can contact us at 717-277-5486.
Before we close out, is there anything else you'd like the listeners to know, either about yourself or about your facility?
I just wanted to let everybody know, if you or somebody in the Lebanon area who could benefit from a strength conditioning coach or a personal trainer, GSC is the place to go.
Awesome. Adam Gilson on the American Grown Podcast in the Colortech Creative Solutions Studios. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, thank you, Austin.
Awesome, man. Great job. If you want to see more American Grown content, follow along on Facebook and Instagram. Username American Grown Podcast. If you received any value, please share this episode with friends, family, and coworkers. And lastly, subscribe and leave a review.
If you'd like to be a featured guest on the podcast, please direct message or email Austin at americangrownpod@gmail.com.